My cell phone went off just as my students had left for lunch. Quickly, I grabbed my phone to see the number of who was calling. Sure enough, it was the adoption agency. I held my breath as I fumbled to answer. "I'm afraid I have bad news," she said. "You're too late. Jude's file has been returned to his country. It had already been extended long past the accepted time limit. We instructed our secretary to mail it back just this morning. His chances for adoption are over." I mumbled a thank you and crumpled down onto the floor of my classroom. I was completely taken aback by the sudden and overwhelming grief that came from somewhere I didn't even know existed. Why is this affecting me this way? We weren't even sure we were willing to commit. We were just inquiring. We hardly know anything about him anyway. Why such grief over him? Goodness knows we have enough children already. But the small photo of a dark-skinned 4-year-old boy with a starkly shaved head and haunting almond eyes stared back at me from my computer screen. He wasn't smiling. He was so skinny. His misshapen face, the scars on his lip and his nose, belied the facial surgeries he had already endured. Now, we had heard about children with cleft lip and palates before. Why, we had filled out a whole questionnaire that the home study agency had given to us. How odd and irreverent it had seemed to be circling yeses and nos as if in school with a number 2 pencil. Would you accept a child who's missing a limb? Would you accept a child needing heart surgery? And the list went on and on. We were told to answer truthfully, there would be no judgment, so we completed the sheet. My husband and I knew that God had called us to welcome orphans into our home. We had a strong support system, good insurance, so almost everything on the questionnaire we marked yes. One item in particular, however, I do remember guiltily checking no. I can handle a lot of things, but not that one. All of our children were straight A students, gifted and talented. To have a last child that would be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and one who might need lifelong care, that was just a bit too much. God would understand. And now, here I was, years later, 7 children. 7 is the number of completion, you know. But the constant inside my gut nagging wouldn't leave me. Someone's missing. There's a piece missing in our family. Even my financially conscious husband was in agreement. Not many days later, out of the blue, a friend had emailed us about Jude. That was an assigned name that the adoption agency had given him. His ethnic name carried the meaning, pieces that fit together. She sent out an email to everyone she knew since Jude's time was running out, and no one was inquiring about him. My husband and I were comfortable with the disability of cleft lip and palate. We thought we could handle that. But how could it be that no one wanted this precious, tiny little guy who looked so lonely and afraid? The fact is, I didn't even know I wanted him. Not until I heard that woman's words spoken with such finality. His chance for adoption is gone? What would his life be like now? He would have a lifetime without the love and care of a family, living in a country where disabilities are not understood or accepted. Life on the streets might be a real certainty. The more I looked at that photo, the more sure I became. I did want him. He belonged in our family. But we were too late. Just when I had finally gained my composure and had willed the tears away so I could welcome my students back from recess with an admittedly fake smile, that phone rang again. The voice on the other end sounded familiar, and yet it was totally different. She breathlessly spilled out, "Jude's file is still here. Our secretary did not mail it back. She just confessed to us that she couldn't bear to put it in the mail today. She purposefully held it back, telling herself, 1 more day. I want to give him 1 more day." The voice on the other end had begun to break, and I realized that she had been feeling the depth of this loss almost as deeply as I had been. And I knew Jude was our son. 6 months later, my husband and I were standing in a crowded room with a dozen other anxious and scared families, waiting to meet the children that would soon bear our names, sleep in our homes, and become a part of us. Jude came to us with cautious curiosity. I was overwhelmed with just how small he was. He went readily into my husband's arms, and his babyish fingers wrapped around his new daddy's neck and puttied with his hair. His almond eyes squinted into the shape of happiness as we emerged from the government building into the bright sunlight and headed out together. Back in the hotel room, we began treatments for lice and scabies and intestinal parasites. I held my breath as I undressed him for the very first bath. Thin skin wrapped around protruding, bony ribs. I found an 18-month-old outfit for my 4.5-year-old boy to wear. But his smile, it lit up the room, and it won my heart. It would be several years before we would discover that Jude's disabilities went far beyond cleft lip and palate. Of the one disability I knew I could never handle, God sent me Jude to show me differently. Jude did bring our family to completion, and he is indeed the last piece that fit our family together.